Alright, Sam, so I'll put my mouse down because you're a bit of a distance. So, right, so what I'm going to take you through here is setting out the stud work. So we've got a stud wall to go in, but we've got to set it to the plasterboard basically. Okay, so when we're doing the ceiling joists and stuff, or floor joists, we'll work to 400 centres, and that is what we do. We do work to 400 or 600 centres. However, when we're needing something to lie down or go against the wall, for example, and the thing that we're putting on the wall is plasterboard, you'll notice that the plasterboard in width is 1200 mil. So what we have to do is we have to just make sure that we've got a stud, so a piece of timber, a timber upright, a stud, to carry and catch the edge of the sheet, so that we can finish this board on that stud and then start the next board, because otherwise we'd have to put two studs next to each other. It's not what we're doing. Okay, so I'll show you how to do that. The only thing as well I was going to show you to do is how we're going to cut plasterboard. Alright, so I've managed to, while you've been working away, I've managed to get my measurement, okay, for my ceiling. I'm never doing this tight. This is a bit of plasterboard. Ideally we want to pack it off the floor, okay, and pack it up to the ceiling so it's not in conjunction with the floor. A couple of reasons you do that: give it a bit of room, make it a bit easier. If you're working on the ground floor, concrete floor as well, you wouldn't want that sat down on the floor either, because of moisture coming up into the board. All right. So what I've done is I've got my measurement, floor to ceiling, okay, up to the ceiling joist, albeit there's no plasterboard on the ceiling, so I've just gone up to the ceiling joist. I've got a measurement of 2260, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go 2260 down here, okay, 2260, so, and then whatever that is on the end, 139. You don't have to do that, it's just easier. You could have gone 2260, 2260, okay? When you get a bit more confident as well, depending on whether you're left or right-handed, you could even cut the plasterboard by holding the measurement, whatever measurement you need, off the edge of the sheet. I'm right-handed, so it'll be down this end. And as long as you can get a nice parallel cut, you can cut it like that, okay? That's obviously a higher skill level. When you're first starting out with this stuff, I probably wouldn't recommend that, because you'll be all over the place. Okay, so what we're going to use is 6 foot level, and then we're going to put the level on our 2 lines, making sure we get it bang on the line, and then run the Stanley blade, okay, or utility knife. Usually in the trade it's called a Stanley knife. Okay, we're going to run that and cut one nice clean cut on the paper surface of the plasterboard. Lose the spirit level at that point. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in behind the board. I'm just going to put my knee on it, like so, and it should break quite nicely. Okay, and then what we're going to do, do me a favour, can you just lift that edge of the sheet off onto the floor? That's it, nice one, mate. Thank you. Okay, and then all you do is you just cut the paper on the back. Okay. So, and then what you can even do as well is you can get a tool called a rasp or a surf form, okay, same thing. It looks a bit like a cheese grater on one side, but it's specifically for smoothing off the edge of the plasterboard, okay. In this situation, going against the ground, don't bother, but if it was a situation where you're going up against another sheet or a ceiling or whatever, or maybe you're forming a bit of boxing in or something, you would do, you'd dress the edge, so that it's easier for maybe the dry liner or maybe the plasterer to fit his bead up against on the corners, so it's not all inny-outy. Alright, so that's that done. So Harry, if you want to grab the end of that sheet, we're going to put that to one side. So keep going back. Thank you. So part 2 of this is the stud work. Okay, so internal partition, okay, stud work. I've already cut these to size. The main thing I want to take you through is setting this out properly. Okay, so our sheet is 1200mm wide. Okay, if I was to do 400 centres off the start of the stud work, what I'd have is a situation. If I hold that there, I would have a situation where the stud would finish like that. Okay. So then you can see that wouldn't catch the next board. So we've got to do a little bit of sort of readjustment for this. So what we need is the stud, as mentioned, to start central on the edge of the sheet. So it carries the next one. All right. So what we're going to do, chuck that to one side. Again, chuck that to one side. We know the measurement, which is 1200mm. Back on this side, so you can see a bit better. Okay, so what I've got, situation down here, so I've gone 1200 from the edge, okay, that's where the plasterboard's going to sit against that return wall there, okay, and I'm going to go 1200 and then mark the centre point, okay. Then what I do is I can either hold the timber on the centre point and mark one side, okay, or I can literally measure the half distance and just come back. For this, this is worth whacking it on the half and then marking one side. Okay. Then when I've got that mark from the one side, all I've got to do then is just work from this point back and then forward that way. Okay. If it goes on 6-7 sheets down that way, it'll be fine as long as we do multiples of 400 from that. But coming back, what you'll notice, I've gone 400 there. The X is that side of the line because the stud is that side of this line. So 400, 800, okay, X is that side of the line. When I bring the tape on this bit, it's slightly under 400, but that doesn't matter. It's half the width of the timber, narrower in this one, that doesn't matter, okay? But it does matter that we've got the edge of the sheet carried, all right? Okay, so we're in a situation where we can fix our sheet now. So I've put the studs in and behind, okay, and I'll move the sheet so you can sort of semi-see what we're doing now. Alright, so got the studs in behind, exactly where I wanted to put them, so that the last stud is on that half, on the 1200, half off it type thing, okay, to carry the next sheet, and you'll see what I'm going to do now. So this is all about fixing the plasterboard sheet, okay. So first of all, what I'm going to do, because I cut it slightly short to raise it off the floor, a couple of packers on the floor to sit it on, and then I like right in the way, but I should be able to get it in. Okay, so I'm going to get that back in there. There we go. Alright, okay, so what you can see now, I've got a bit of a bowed timber here. I'll sort that out in a second with a level. But what you can see is I've got a timber half off the sheet, half on it, so that I can start the next sheet. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and fix this in position. Okay, battery drill, and you want a sometimes you do get a drill bit with these dry wall screws. These are dry wall screws, and they're really good. They're obviously blackened, and they can cope with moisture, so they can cope with obviously plastering, for example, or wet filler, for example, they're not going to rust out. Okay, the head on them is known as a pH head. Okay, this one's a pH2. Okay, like a Phillips type head. Unfortunately, I've only got posi, so I have to try and make it work. But usually you get one in the pack, but you should have one in your toolkits as well. All right. The other thing with these as well, doing a lot of plasterboarding, for example, you're on it all day. When you're using these, at the end of the day, you can find between your finger and your thumb having a few black metal splinters, which they're not they don't really hurt, but they're not particularly pleasant. So you might want to use like a bit of a Michael Jackson style left-handed glove for holding the screw. It's up to you really. If you can, you're hard, then you won't need to. You double hard, then you might. Right, so now I've got it sort of semi where I want it. Okay, just going to double check the gaps. I've got a decent gap on the bottom. I've got an alright gap there. I think the stud works slightly out there on that side, but it works with the stud. So I'm just going to fire a couple of fixings in it. So when you're screwing these up, okay, what you want to make sure is the head of the screw is completely underneath the surface. Okay, not massively on the surface. You don't want it to pull through the sheet. Okay, you want it so it's like a couple of mil under the surface, because the plasterer will want to come along and plaster this surface, and if not, if the screw heads are proud, they're going to be hitting your screw heads, and it's going to possibly damage their trowel, for example. So they're not going to be best pleased with you there. Okay, so making sure that the head's below the surface. All right, and then really that's pretty much it. So what we need to do is we need to level up some lines to get a fix in. So I've already pre-marked some lines on the floor of where the studs are. Okay, I'm going to get the level on the mark and then mark make sure you're working in pencil, obviously, to make it a bit more obvious so you can see it instead of camera can pick it up and work using pen. Okay, just mark that line. So that represents a perfect example of why I don't work in pen. That didn't mark it. So that line there represents the middle of the stud. Okay. Obviously, you don't need to do it on the sides because you know where the timber is. Okay. I'm just going to have to push that one in a little bit because it's bowing out. You can do it on the set. And the only other thing really to note is to make sure when you're fixing this up, you want to put a screw every foot really. So in today's money, that's 300 millimeters, about 300 mil. So you start. I'm going to put one in the middle here just to secure the sheet a bit more. Okay. Bit of a close up on that there, mate, if you can.
Zooming in.
Yeah, so you can just see that's the level of sort of distance underneath you want to be. Okay, and then what you want to do is put one of these, like I said, over 300 mil. So you're not going to get a tape measure out and mark it, but your carpenter's eye should be able to recognise roughly 300 mil. So I'm going to go about there, and so on and so on. Okay, any questions about plasterboarding? Any questions about setting the stud work about plasterboard? No? Alright, Sam.